Hi, welcome back to Get a Grip Graphics. This is a relatively new product we're going to look at the moment, and these are for preliminary analytical graphics. That's the investigation of a product. In this case, the Stutvig suction cup from IKEA, packs of 4. You can see the page from the website there. So the fundamentals of this will involve producing some orthographic sketches based on the assembly. Now what we're looking at the moment will take in real time about 35 minutes, but we've managed to speed parts of this up for the purpose of this video, and it should take about 21 minutes to get through. So by drawing around the object, we can obviously get a fairly quick understanding what the top view would look like, but by recording around the outside of that, any internal features, alignments, centers, components, little marks on the outside will help us build up where things sit. Now we don't always get it right first time, so okay, so we've got to put that back on and get the width of that handle, for example, on the outside, and we'll project across and across. That's going to give us this rectangle within which the round handle locator, the thumb hold, the part that actually tightens up on the thread, on the part that causes the suction. Again, there's a lot more detail. We'll cover this as we go through. That top part, again, you can pop back and have a look at the graphics from IKEA earlier in the video to see what the form looks like. We're building up this idea of this concentric circle, this second circle that fits perfectly around, or as near as we can in this sketch, that sausage-shaped handhold on the top. There's a lot of detail we can see from the top view. For example, those lines going across there, that's the wall, the thickness of that part we can see from the top view. A lot more detail to go into that later on. Then there's the hook part itself. That's the one that's going to show us the part in which objects can be hung up on. So we're building this up fairly slowly, just trying literally to get to know it. Okay, so we had to speed things up a bit to save a bit of time. And you can see from the top view here, we're projecting lengths down and using the object sitting on top to give us indications of the height. We might not get this bang on for the purpose of the sketch, but it's 20-25 minutes speeded up and should give you a fairly good representation of the object. Remember, this is an assembly. This is not in any way enough detail for you to go on and produce detailed CAD drawings or models or 3D print or whatever we want to do in terms of using this product later on. We're really analysing the product. Slow down a bit now for the end elevation. Because of the length of it, it tends to stick out the page quite a bit. It's difficult to line up. So a wee cheat here, I think you just saw it happening, was to lay it down on top and mark on the width. First of the cone, then of the end part, then projecting the height of that conic part along, the heights, the thickness of the suction cup underneath, the width of the handle as it sticks out. Remember, we're not going to see everything from this view, so looking down the line of the view at the moment is slightly different from the camera. The camera's looking at a different angle from the viewer. There's a bit more detail to be going down at this end. There's a same arc-shaped semicircular end to this, but there's a lot more detail. There's a hole, for example, probably to reduce weight or to help some sort of alignment or fitting together of the hook part. So that's the basic form going together. We're not going to see that handle, but although we just try projecting it across, we definitely get the width because we did that wee cheat earlier on, and we're just going to firm in around those edges. Okay, get the widths in place. It might not be completely symmetrical, but remember these are preliminary sketches. There's actually a double line underneath there, which you probably can't see from the camera angle. It's only 1 millimeter or so high, but again, it's a sort of detail we want to try and at least hint at these early stages, because basically we're going to have to take this thing apart to get any idea the overall three-dimensional form, the materials used, the construction used, and the detail enough to produce CAD models, for example, of each of the components, of which I think there's 3, maybe 4, but let's have a look as we take it apart. So like any construction, these preliminary sketches, I started off with some sketching. That was definitely a sketch grip you saw going on there. You probably see a difference in the grip on that pen. Pencil is definitely the way to learn, but pen you can build up to. And you can see there we're now firming in. Okay, looking at some detail in that, there's a few lines that We may see it, or we might not see that it'll be lightened up or firmed in. Well, not lightened up because it's pen, just ignored. Keep your constructions light, firm in the outline, and for this type of drawing we can certainly build up detail. Like the fact that those corners there were rounded, but this one here is sharp. The one internal there is a sharp corner, for reasons I'll find out later on. The handle itself is lined up horizontal just to make the drawing a little bit more easier to line things up, if you like. We could have that rotating part at any angle, but really to make the drawing a little bit easier to read and a little bit easier on the eye, we just lined everything up. So having a look now again at that end view, you can see from the camera that it definitely is hollow, and there's a groove thing at the bottom, but to be honest, I think possibly to reduce weight, reduce material, save cost, although the tooling for that would probably be a bit more expensive. That hook part, which you wouldn't see underneath, to be honest, it's the underneath part, so it's definitely hollow. Then we've got this double line at the bottom for the rubber or silicon suction cup that we can definitely see even handling the product as simply as we're doing at the moment. Right. What we're doing now is just to put in the main dimensions we think may be most appropriate. We'll maybe not get them all right first time. It's definitely worth recording them. What we're doing this now is just getting the leader lines and the dimension lines for lengths and diameters in position. We could add those dimensions later on by a very important skill within graphics, and that's the measurement, the detailed measurement of these components. Some of the sizes might be slightly off. That's not too big a problem at the moment. It's really just getting to grips with it. We cannot give enough detail in terms of dimensions on this view to allow us to do anything other than get an overall feel of the form. There's too much detail to dimension in an assembly. Generally, dimensions assembly drawings would be used to show overall sizes and are ideal for things like sectional views, etc. But at the moment, we don't really know this product. We're getting to know it through taking, well, here we go, taking it to bits and working out what goes where and how things can be assembled. And realizing even that top bit has it's a hollow inside, looks like a metal insert of some sort. There's a pin or a post in there. And this pushes out of the chassis this longer piece. That's the suction cup, looks like a die cast thread of some sort coming out the top there. Then there's a hook which slides back in a groove, and we can see straight away from there's a lot more detail than the assembly view is ever going to show. So, as this is just getting the ball rolling, we're analysing things. Let's have a look at what we've got. We'll just speed up this. We're not really showing you how to at the moment, but just showing you the type of preliminary graphics. In this case, this would be an exploded view showing what we'll call a suction cup and the chassis and the nut or cap on top, and then there's the hook part itself. Now, again, this is just hinting at some sort of detail. Possibly drawing them bigger would be a little bit easier, but just for this exercise, we put it on a corner of the A3 sheet and looking in some sort of detail of the hollow part, this intricate groove system on the underside for that hook as it joins onto the chassis. So, lots of detailing to be done. We're not at that stage yet. All we can work out are what are these things for. So it's a die cast. There's a silicon or certainly transparent, so I doubt it's rubber base. Then there's this injection molded chassis through which all the components bolt or slide on. It aligns through the centre and meets size-wise with the nut on the top. We've got the fact that the arms have a length to take the hook further away from the adjusting part. Excuse me, it's been a long day. We've got the width of that part on the top, and the fact that somewhere inside there's going to have this the nut that's held within there. It allows a pull from the suction up through the chassis, etc. So, recording thoughts on these components, it's all four of them. The hook here, for example, is quite complex in terms of internal features, but it looks very, very simple from the outside. So as simple as it is on the outside, there's an awful lot of detail to be seen, and that's for another type of drawing. These assembly drawings primarily to get the ball rolling, to understand. I probably repeat myself several times in this short video. So we've got this exploded view. What maybe worth looking at the moment is having a go at a three-dimensional sketch of this thing. It's remember, we're looking primarily at preliminary analytical sketches. Now, preliminary, you really don't know the product. You've got to get to grips with it. You need to know, first of all, what it looks like assembled, then the parts independent and how they go together, and how the fitting of those components, the manufacturing of those components can be achieved. That sort of detail takes a fair bit of analysis, hence preliminary analytical sketching. So we've got this orthographic view. It tells us something, it doesn't tell us everything. We've got a quick exploded view, if you like, to give an idea what the components look like. We could have used photographs for that, but just to get the sketching skills up. So now we're going to have a look at the 3D assembly. Now, I've put together a fairly chunky box here to give an idea of the overall form or the crate within which it might sit, and starting off with the top view, the plan, if you like, on top of that box, showing maybe the top of that conic or cone-like part, and looking at just trying to sketch into the top of this box. Although the box itself does look a little bit on the tall side. We have to do some work on that. So that would be roughly where the handle might sit above. But to be honest, taking this cone, the lower part, the suction cup, if you like, down here, on that chassis, and then maybe building up the height to get the heights a bit more realistic this time, where that rounded off cone might fit, and then maybe sitting straddling on top of that cone, a cuboid or crate, again, if you like, for the basic. I've referred to it as a sausage several times before, but the hand part, the interaction part on the top here. So just building that up. This is going to take a little bit of time. We'll run through most of the sketching in real time, maybe speed up some colour work later on. But we're really just trying to get a good idea of the object. The trouble is, what I'm doing this now is I'm sketching this as if it was a part. I really need to get my self sorted out and see this really as an assembly again. So what I might do is, once I get to this sort of detail of where this silicone, or it's not rubber because it's clear material at the bottom, fits on, I'd be as well taking all the parts and putting them back together again. So after all, I'm sketching assembly. It'd be a lot more sensible to have an assembly in front of me. So just give me a second and we'll get this all these parts together. They do go together fairly simply. They're fairly unambiguous as to which way they would go together, and that in itself reeks of good design. So let's look at this part and the arm that swings out the front of this maybe slightly longer chassis part. Chassis is a term I've been using. Chassis is a structure on which other parts can be hung. Cars, for example, trucks traditionally had chassis. So this longer part sticking out the side here, maybe a bit longer than I've drawn the crate for, so I'll just curve off the end a little bit further outside that box, bring it down and just finish off that arched end. That's the basic form. Remember the view, the thickness now maybe of the walls of that part sticking across. The view you're seeing is different from when I'm drawing this because the camera's mounted slightly off position from where I'm sitting. Just looking at some internal detail, and that's got the basics about right. Now for the hook, this, again, I get the idea of a sort of block sticking out. It's probably slightly higher from my earlier orthographic sketch, but just trying to get the basic proportions of that cuboid, within which I'll round off, as we've done before, with those sort of curved sausage type ends. But there's an awful lot of detail in this particular part. Now, I've shown you already how it comes apart. I've shown you this sort of exploded view. So this is not really telling me a great deal more detail. It's just reinforcing how the thing is assembled. Initially, an assembled drawing is what you'd be looking for. But remember that this type of preliminary sketch could also lead to more detail, say to a sectional view, showing how things, if you're cut through, how they would go together. But at the moment, I'm very much in the early stages. Picked this thing out of its package maybe half an hour ago, and looking at how the thing actually is formed and how the parts themselves fit together. A little bit of a groove inside that hollow part. This hook part is hollow, although you can't really notice that when it's in use. It must have been done for a reason, possibly to reduce the amount of material Certainly a lot of detail on how this lower part, even though I'm getting this hollow part in at the moment, the part that fits the interaction between the chassis and this hook is a lot more detailed, and it will certainly take a lot more work to work out how that goes together. Remember, there are tens, if not hundreds of thousands of hours involved in developing a product like this, from the initial concept through development models. What we're looking at is a finished article, something that has been, what was that double line along the bottom again? I've got to remember that each time. The double line and a little detail in that corner as well. Rounding off, just firming in a few of those more outlines. You'll have noticed the change in grip obviously in the way through this. We've gone from a sketch mode to some more of a firming outline type of grip on this. As I say, the time and effort spent designing this is phenomenal. It's a product that will be made in the hundreds of thousands, if not millions, and that will be sold in IKEA shops worldwide. A very, very simple looking product. I've mentioned that before, but it hides an awful lot of design. So, firming in some outlines. I think you'll see the construction lines have tended to disappear now. That was the function of construction lines, was to help us, and you can see I've made a few minor mistakes. I might get rid of those with a little touch of colour and distract the viewer's eye by adding colour to the resulting 3D sketch. Because your eye's drawn towards the colour, you don't actually see, or you don't pick up quite so easily on some of the oversized boxes I was starting off with. Again, never been drawn before, first attempt. If I was to draw this again, I'd probably make some improvements on it, but this is the initial type of sketch you'll be doing if you're analysing a product. So it's not looking too bad. Again, just remember there's a different view from what you're seeing to what I'm seeing when I'm sketching this. Doing this on a Lazy Susie, one of those rotating tables, just makes it a little bit easier to turn the page when I'm videoing. Okay, we're not really going to do much in terms of rendering. You might recognise some of these techniques of radial rendering on this conic section, and just using in this case it was a fairly dry marker. By dry I mean it was old and worn out, so I used two yellows in this case, slightly more useful darker yellow. It might even just be that it was less dry. You can see a difference in those two tones as intensities of yellow, and we're taking the right surface, the surface furthest away from our top left hand light source. Maybe a touch of grey in there as well, just to reinforce the depth to some of these parts. So a fairly light grey, but just touching them, I get a little bit of shadow and maybe a bit more on the cone at the edge there. So what we've now got, and it's essential we do this, it's the analysis. It's the written part, explaining why part A has got two parts to it. It's got a soft silicon type disc that has been joined somehow to a die cast threaded part that allows the suction to move up. How part B, this chassis, allows for the alignment of that part and for the space for it to be drawn up, creating a vacuum to allow this thing to suck to the surface. That the arm sticking out allows for the location and fixing of the hook, and the surface allows for a free movement of the locking nut on top, in this top part of the cone. Very simple, but it does its job every time. C, that'll be the nut on top with a cap that's wide enough to grip the hand, to be turned easily with a range of different grip strengths, depending on who's going to be using this product at the end of the day. And of course, that's got an injection molded part, but it's also got a steel part or metal part within it that's the nut. So how would that be joined in? Then there's the hook part itself, part D. Much more detail than I've even hinted at in these early sketches. How that, why it's hollow and the way it's hollow, how it locates into and snaps into position on the chassis. So what we've managed to do, hopefully, is give you a little introduction in early 2016 to this IKEA suction cup. These are analytical, preliminary sketches. The idea is to give you a little taste of the type of sketching you can start this process off. Obviously, these are just assemblies. There's a lot more details to come in parts drawings. So please feel free to rewind, have a look through, and use this. It's a simple little investment, and with great graphics, we're trying to reinforce this freehand preliminary sketching from outlining, from construction lines to outlining and then rendering. So hopefully enjoy your sketching and you get as much as you can out of a simple but elegant little product like this. Bye for now.